This one's an elephant.
In the last 30 years, I've painted miles of walls, tagged hundreds of spots, and filled dozens of sketchbooks. I've brought thousands of ideas to life on paper and on canvas. My name is Chris. I'm an artist out of Hamilton, Ontario, and this is what 30 years of art looks like. As far back as I can remember, I've always wanted to be an artist. I spent my early years drawing on myself, filling sketchbooks, painting on walls, skateboards, even as a toddler. Like, my parents would walk in the room and they would find me just covered in tattoos. I would draw all over myself. I remember one year my dad was watching a football game with my uncles, and they left me unattended. Next thing you knew, half of me was painted one color and the other half was painted another color.
You know, I've never been much of an abstract artist, but when people ask me to try, I do. But I'm not entirely sold on it.
As I got a little bit older, I started focusing on what type of art I wanted to create. I got into high school, started tagging. My sketchbooks all of a sudden changed from comic book characters to graffiti tags, throw-ups. I started tagging spots, filling walls, traveling around to find different tunnels and bridges in order to create these huge graffiti pieces. I've done legal walls and I've done illegal walls. But as I got older, you find yourself spending less and less time in the streets and trying to convince yourself to paint on canvas.
A lot of these paintings are just graffiti. And the problem with that is no one wants to buy a piece of graffiti with your name on it. They want their name on it. So at some point I got to paint over all of these in order to make them for someone else.
I've filled hundreds of canvases with crazy ideas that will never see the light of day. But as the pile of canvases gets bigger and bigger and bigger, I have friends and family constantly saying, "What are you doing with them? Why are they just here? You should either take them off the frame, roll them up and save them, or try selling them."
I would say half of them aren't even finished yet. Half of them is a concept that I started, never finished.
So for the last 10 years, I've been trying to sell my art publicly. I had to find a community, first of all, of artists that were creating art, not just for themselves, but for the purpose of selling their art. Once I got into the community, you would actually be quite surprised how many people just make art for themselves and not for the world or for the public.
They say one of the saddest realizations you have as an artist is when you realize that you're not famous until you die. So if you can't appreciate it later, I think, why should you be able to appreciate it now? Just give them away. The world needs art. The world needs artists. Just give it away.
A couple years into trying to find my groove or trying to find my voice in this art community, I found out about Supercrawl, Art Crawl, and Art Battles. Supercrawl is a big endeavor. It's a 3-day event where you set up a booth, a tent, and try to peddle yourself. I'm not very good at selling myself. So because I found it so tough to sell myself, there was no way that I was going to spend as much as they wanted me to spend on a booth to try to sell my artwork for the first time. I had to find a group of like-minded individuals that wanted to sell theirs. We all went in. I think it was like 3 or 4 of us in the first booth, 2 of us in the next booth. The first couple years of Supercrawl were interesting. The paintings that I sold were my least favorite paintings. All the stuff that I thought was gonna sell, I still have 7 years later.
This one here is one of the first paintings I've ever done as a commercial artist. 10 years ago, when I did my first art show, my unveiling, that was like one of the biggest pieces I did as a new artist. It's kind of fun. CN Tower, the Rogers Stadium. That was so long ago, but I still like it. But there's a lot I'd change if I had to redo it. Sometimes I think about revisiting these old paintings. You know, would it be better to start from scratch or just fix what you've already got?
But everything I created thinking, oh no, this one was rushed or this one was garbage, surprisingly sold right away. The pieces that I spent hours on, the pieces that I put myself into, all the artwork that I consider real or therapy or something that's meaningful meant nothing to these people. but a small picture of Zelda or a game logo or a graffiti tag that meant nothing, but it said something that somebody else related to, they latched onto it. Kind of made me feel hollow.
You know, sometimes I wonder why I hang on to all these. The canvases were quite expensive. Maybe I just want to save them so I can repaint them. Maybe I think they're salvageable. I don't know. I see a little bit of value there. I mean, one day I'll finish it.
So right now we're in 2025. In the midst of all this, I guess COVID happened and we missed out 2 years of art battles. We missed out 2 years of super crawls. When we got back into the swing of things, you can imagine not as many people were excited to come out, see the art, see the bands, eat the food. So the first year or two after COVID, super crawl was quite small. So small, in fact, that I couldn't afford the booth for the third year and the fourth year. I started going to this free section. It's like a corner at the top of the street where a bunch of artists that can't afford to get a booth are allowed to still be a part of Supercrawl. So Supercrawl can be very, very discouraging. It'll eat you up, especially if you're new in it, but you can learn a lot. You learn how to sell your art. You learn what art sells. You learn how to talk to people. Not everybody wants to buy art. Some people just want to come and chat and feed you ideas. I've taken a few of those ideas, created work, created paintings, and I created a skateboard from one. The guy saw me at Supercrawl, followed me on Instagram, saw that I painted his idea, and then turned around and bought it. Even if you're discouraged in the moment, something good can eventually come down the line. And that was good. That was good for me to overcome because the beginning was so discouraging. For the last few years, I've actually made more money doing commissions than I have doing Supercrawl. So I no longer look at Supercrawl as if it's the big event for the year. I look at it more like a calling card or a business card or a chance for you to meet the artist. And then I always discount my artwork for live events. So that way you come out and see me live, you get something at a discounted price. It's not the same as the website, but I do that now because I make more money doing commissions than Supercrawl, which is a great thing to learn. But that did take 7 years.
I don't really know if I have a favorite thing that I like to paint. I mean, I've had my phases. I love painting graffiti. That's just fun. Sometimes I'll get into one of these moods where if I'm intimidated by something, I'll have to conquer it. For example, I wasn't good at drawing skulls, so I spent a year drawing skulls. Then when I finally found like a version of it that I was really happy with, I moved on to something else. So hands really intimidated me. So I did a year of hands. And when I was happy with that, I move on to the next thing. So this year I'm doing portraits. Stuff like this really interests me. If I could just add a little bit of detail every day, it'll be done in 10 years. But this one's for me. I'll never sell this one. So as long as it takes is as long as it takes. And if I end up getting a different car one day, I'll paint over this and I'll put a different car in that spot.
One of my favorite commissions is a skateboard I did for a little girl for Christmas. Her dad came to me at a Supercrawl and he asked me if I'd be willing to do a custom commissioned skateboard for his daughter. I had no problem with doing that at all. We went online, we ordered the right board, we went back and forth for a little while, tried to figure out the design that she wanted on the board. It ended up being 2 koi fish that were yin-yanged with cherry blossoms on either side of the board. To this day, it's still one of my favorite boards I've done. And it feels so good that the following Supercrawl, I got to meet the little girl, I got to meet the father, he shook my hand. Creating that piece of art that's so special to me. Skateboarding is a very special hobby to me. So being able to share that with the next generation was just one of my favorite things. To this day, one of my favorite commissions. I do a lot of fun commissions, a lot of kids' rooms, a lot of playrooms. I did a few baby sharks. Those sell right away. The funniest thing about those is if you're trying to sell those at like an art show, mums will walk by it with the stroller. Kids will see it, they'll start singing, and the mom's just like, you've just ruined my day. Thank you for that. And you see them walking away and the kid's still singing it in the chair, and it'll probably go all day long. but those paintings sell like hotcakes. The Lego paintings sell like crazy. I've also done dinosaurs, rocket ships, but I think my favorite is the Lego characters, because my nephew says, hey, I want something for my bedroom. Well, what do you want, buddy? And it's anything he wants. So the Lego characters are the fun ones to do. They're quick to do too. So commissions are actually taking up a big part of my life right now, which is good. Right now I'm working on a big one, cottagecore themed series of 14 paintings, and they're going to hang on the wall in a specific way so they all kind of lead into the next and they tell the story. But it's like a feature wall. It's kind of daunting because it's so many, but I feel confident I can pull it off.
So if you've seen me paint live, then you've probably seen me paint this a few times. But sometimes when I'm not sure what I want to paint at an art battle, I'll practice one of these the night before. It's a very quick painting, something you can do in 20 minutes. And people seem to like it.
I was actually at a Supercrawl when I found out about Art Battle. When I found out about Art Battle, it changed everything. It changed my life. The first time I competed, I was so nervous. The paintbrush was shaking. I had 20 minutes to complete a painting from start to finish. And then the crowd got to vote. The crowd got to judge. And it was nerve-wracking. But the adrenaline rush was absolutely incredible. And I was hooked. And I found that spark, that thing that I was looking for, that filled the hollow void. And now it's my favorite thing in the world to do. We compete everywhere. We travel around from city to city. We carpool. There's a whole Art Battle crew. It's one of my favorite things in the world.
Now here's something interesting. I took a couple old paintings, cut the canvases off the frames, made triangle frames, and I thought I'd try something a little different. These ones are a lot of fun. I've done 9 of them. I only have a few left. That's gonna look dope when it's done.
The sad part is, 30 years into an art career, a lot of your friends that you started with, a lot of friends that you painted with over the last 10 years, they start finding other artistic outlets, photography, crochet. But it feels like I'm just ramping up as everyone's kind of ramping down. But that's 30 years in and 5 years after COVID, which is tough. I love doing commissions. I love painting live, but I think it's time to level up. And I want to paint for you. If you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching. And if you'd like to support the channel, you can follow me on Patreon, Instagram, TikTok, all the major platforms. Like, subscribe, share it with somebody you think might enjoy it. I would really appreciate that, because this has not only been my whole life, but this is the rest of my life. And thank you for watching.
I can be your hero, baby. Sorry. I can be your random hero, baby. I can kiss away the pain.